I want to talk about something that an experience that I had a few years ago during the holy month of Ramadan. I wasn't fasting myself, but I was trying to observe the basics of fasting. The experience was that I had a vision that I was taken to the year 2320, 300 years into the future. And I was exposed there to how life was, what people were doing, how they lived their lives. And it was a very different world to the one that we live in today in the 2020s. And in some ways, it shouldn't be a surprise, because if you go 300 years into the past, the life of humanity in 1720 would be quite different to today. They wouldn't have had anything like electricity, phones, computers, cars, airplanes, ships. They had some ships, but wooden ships. And if people got around, they were generally getting around on horseback or in carriages drawn by horses, or they were going by sea routes, sailing ships generally. So this was quite a different world to the world we live in today. And the world that I saw in 2320 was in itself quite different from what it is today. I've reflected on what these differences were. They come down, I think, to three basic areas which I saw as being different to how we live today. One was on a personal level, how people behaved, it's like they had an existential understanding about why they were here and what it was they were supposed to be doing. Humans having a sense of purpose and meaning. And I've come to call this the sovereign individual, where people understood that that each of them had a divine spark, and this divine spark, which is shared by all of humanity, bestows, as it does, a sense of equality on the one hand, and a sense of uniqueness on the other hand, that we're all unique, but we're all equal. This has a number of very significant consequences. People, I think, had a greater self-respect and a respect for each other. That's the first top line understanding about how people behaved. So there were, and this really pervaded everything that the civilization was based on. Treated everybody with an individual respect, treated everybody as if they had some unique talent, some unique sense of personality, and that each of us has something that we can do in the world. So that was the first thing, what I call a sovereign individual. The second was more on a social level. There was I can't call it an organization, it was an existence of what was known as the foundation. Foundation basically was the biggest thing around. It had survived the nation state. It had survived politics. The foundation was a store of material wealth for humanity that that everybody contributed to this foundation and everybody benefited from this foundation. But it wasn't, but it was a global organization, but it was administered locally. It didn't have a global governance. It basically worked on a local level. And because the technology that exists 300 years in the future means that energy and food in particular are available at a local level almost universally, so that it makes it possible for self-sufficient communities to exist at a local level. And this foundation functions at a local level. It was basically run by the people in that local community. It was a source of wealth. It owned most of the stuff, buildings, those kind of things. It had a big capital store, so that if people wanted something or they were in need, then the foundation was the vehicle for support for individual people. But it wasn't just a welfare system. It was a material strength to back up the fundamentals of the sovereign individual. In other words, the foundation encouraged the development of individual talents at a fundamental level, schooling and things like that. There was this understanding. There was no uniform rigid school system. That the educational process was one of educating people generally. There was a general status of what people needed to know and understand, how to navigate the world. But at a local level, at a personal level, everybody was encouraged. Everybody understood from the earliest age that they had this uniqueness inside of them. And what the foundation and the local community was doing was to encourage this, the development of individual personality and local and individual talent, not just for the benefit of people themselves, but that this expression of the development of personal talent also served the needs of the community. But people weren't fixed in the community. I mean, the society in general was organized at a community level. And to understand this, I need to describe the third aspect of this vision, which was expressed most clearly in what's called the portal of reality. The portal was and is a means of movement from one place to another instantaneously. We would think of it in modern parlance as a wormhole, but it was a lot simpler than a wormhole. It was based on the idea that, or on the understanding that the reality that we experience is largely put together at its finest point, its most basic point. It is information. And this portal is a way of linking two places together by the matching of information between one place and another. If you have a connection between one place and another, the information becomes connected so that you can move from one place to another. I asked whether this required a great deal of energy, and I was told no, it wasn't energy, it was precision of information. So it was information, I think maybe a mathematical understanding at a higher levels of dimensions that produced a connection through the whole universe, which made this portal available, so that you could, for instance, you could have breakfast on a beach in South America. You could have an office on Earth, or on a space station, or on another planet, and that humanity, in the process of using this technology, had spread towards I think it was 50 inhabited worlds, which is within, I think, 15 light years of where we are on Earth. So humanity had spread across stars, and most people lived in small communities which were linked together with this high degree of sophistication and technology. So this I mean, I have struggled to completely understand the effect that this world, the exposure to this world has on me in the 2020s. And I asked there, well, what's the purpose of showing me this? You know, what is the purpose of me seeing this? And the answer I got was I should look in the 2020s at the beginnings of all these aspects of humanity which become mature in 300 years from now, that each of them actually had the seeds in the current era in the 2020s. I should seek them out and make a connection with them, which is what I've been trying to do. And I've been focusing particularly on this middle, the first one, the sovereign individual, is something that I have felt in my own lifetime anyway, well before being exposed to this picture. So I've been focusing on the foundation. So thinking of a structure, an organization, which is a store of material wealth, something that individual people can contribute to, that makes this something like a bank, but not like a bank. People didn't, it doesn't have shareholders. It's something that everybody contributes to, but it comes back to individual people, not as dividends, but as help in need. So it supports the educational process, it supports the medical process, it supports the care that people need at different times in their lives. And in that way, the foundation serves the needs of humanity in a superior way to the way the consumer society and the shareholder model of companies, basically, although it has produced interesting positives, it also has produced unwanted negatives in exploitation of the planet and the loss of wildlife and use of resources, and the manipulation of people. This is basically, I think people come to understand that there have been, and there is limitations to the kind of consumer society which we generally live in. So this is really, I just wanted to make an introduction to this. I will follow this through in more detail on subsequent videos. So that's all I have to say at the moment. Thank you.